Man, it's great being with you. You could all have a seat real quick. Thank God for you all staying like this. This is an incredible crowd. Turn it up real loud. For all reasons. It's my honor to introduce my best friend that I've known since 1974. And Franklin Graham is the CEO of the Billy Graham Organization and Samaritan's Purse, the largest relief organization, Christian relief organization in America. And he's a man that loved Chuck Smith very much, and Pastor Chuck invited him here, and he flew all the way out from Boone, North Carolina to be here. Let's welcome our good friend, Franklin Graham.
Sitting in the back and appreciated very much listening to the various speakers, especially my friend Raul Reese. But you know, I come to today and I want to thank my friend Chuck Smith for his investment in my life, even in North Carolina. Chuck Smith was a great friend. And I thank him for the investment in my life, and that of my family. And certainly thank Brian for allowing me to come this afternoon to speak to you guys. I want to talk to you guys about evangelism, okay? I'm talking about leading others to Christ. My father turns 95 on November 7th. Okay? He has as much desire today to see someone come to Christ as he did when he was 20 years of age. And at 95, he doesn't have a lot of strength. But he told me a few years ago, he said, Franklin, he said, I want to preach one more time. And I knew that would be tough. And I said, well, Daddy, I said, we'll do whatever we can, and I'll help you any way you want. See, I feel when my father asked me to take over the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, he said, Franklin, I want you to run the day-to-day activities, but I want you to stay out of my crusades. I said, all right, I understand that. I feel that my responsibility is try to help my father finish everything that God has given him to do. I feel that's my job. So, he said, Franklin, I feel like I want to preach one more time. I said, okay. So I took his pulpit, had a big pulpit, and we'd had one made for him back a few years ago where he could kind of sit down and kind of hang on, and he could preach. So we sat in there, and I put a screen in front where we could put his notes so he could try to read them. But his eyes had kind of deteriorated, and he just said, Franklin, it's just not going to work. So I said, okay, well, let's think about it. And we began to pray how God could use my father one more time to touch this country. When I took over the Billy Graham Association, we began to take my father's old films that we've used here in this country, and we lip-synced him to Spanish, and we went to Central America, and we bought time on television in these little countries in Central America that we could get fairly cheaply, and we put new testimonies, we put new music around him in Spanish, and lip-synced him to where you couldn't tell him. I mean, it looked like he was speaking word-perfect Spanish, okay? So we put it on television, and the local people were just excited. We put a local number, and people could call in. And we saw, the first country we went to, El Salvador, we had over 20-some thousand people make decisions for Christ. And then we went to Costa Rica, we went to all the Central American countries, had similar results. Then we went to Colombia, South America, and we did something different. We did all the translating, put the TV program on, bought the time, but we did some training. When Greg Laurie has a crusade, when I have a crusade, my father has a crusade, we have counselors trained so that when we give the invitation, the counselors come forward with those that are receiving Christ. Listen, let's go to Colombia, South America, and before we put this on television, let's train counselors. You say, but Franklin, you didn't have a stadium, what were you doing? We asked the counselors to open up their homes and invite their neighbors and turn their living room into a little mini stadium. Watch Billy Graham on television. When the crusade was over with, the TV program was over, you turn the television off. And then the person who invited their friends, who's been trained, would say, how many of you would like to invite Christ into your heart, just like Billy Graham has asked? We had over 700,000 decisions for Christ in South America. We've done this now in 57 countries. And last year, we began to pray, could we do this in America? Boy, I thought, it's going to be so hard, so tough, because churches have all these programs and everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and I'm not sure people are even interested or even care about evangelism anymore. But we prayed about it, and we decided, let's do it. We have right now over 25,000 churches that have signed up. We already have several 100,000 people who have said, we're going to invite our neighbors and our friends into our living room. And we want to watch this one last message from Billy Graham. Now, my father just finished this a few weeks ago, okay? We just finished it. Men, I want to show it to you right now, okay? Now, I want you to watch it. This is my father's last message to this nation, to this country, and when it's through, I'm going to come right back up and I want to talk to you for a few minutes. But I want you to watch this, and I want you to ask yourself, does this work? Would this work in my living room? So let's watch the video. It's called The Cross.
Young Billy Graham hailed another Billy Sunday.
Reverend Billy Graham, one of the most inspirational spiritual leaders of the 20th century.
Thank you for coming, Billy Graham.
We welcome his evangelist, author, educator, Dr. Billy Graham.
Our recipient, the man who honors us by being here today.
What was your purpose? Go into the whole world and proclaim this message.
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Shall make you free.
As I look back over my life, it's full of surprises. I never thought I would become friends with people in different countries all over the world.
God so loved the world.
I see how God's hand guided me. When I began preaching many years ago, it is not with any faults that I've been preaching to large audiences. God has done this. Our country's in great need of a spiritual awakening. Well, there have been times that I've wept as I've gone from city to city and I've seen how far people have wandered from God. Of all the things that I've seen and heard, there's only one message that can change people's lives and hearts.
There is a way if you come by the way of the cross. The cross.
I want to tell people about the meaning of the cross. Not the cross that hangs on the wall or around someone's neck.
We receive our freedom purchased by the baptism at the cross.
But the real cross of Christ
The cross expresses the great love of God.
is scarred and bloodstained. Here's with the rugged cross.
Real purpose for coming was to die.
I know that many will react to this message, but it is the truth. And with all my heart, I want to leave you with the truth.
God says, I love you, I love you, I love you with an everlasting love.
And He loves you, willing to forgive you of all your sins.
Among our churches, we have a cross. It's embossed on our Bibles.
I thought the cross was a relic. It was a medallion on a necklace at best.
It's an ornament that we wear around our necks, Christians and non-Christians.
The cross really didn't have any meaning to me except for something artistic that rock stars wore.
But talk about the depth and the real meaning of the cross, and it becomes an offense. Why is that?
The cross is offensive because it confronts people. Even so, it's a confrontation that all of us must face.
I was really hurt and just didn't understand the source of all my pain and problems. I spent my whole life just burdened for something. Hungering for something, thirsting after, chasing this thing that I couldn't put my finger on ultimately. I was abused by older people, some in the family, some outside of the family. So as I got older, I always talked back, I always got into fights. street and pointing the gun right at her, just to see her panic and freak out. And it was just me seeking power.
My mom always told me about God. I think I had an idea that God was big and good, but as time went on and I saw more and more tragic things happen around me, I think that was the beginning of me just questioning everything about life and about God. When I was 10 years old, my stepdad came to pick me up and he said that my cousin Kelly was dead. I remember being so mad and really just deciding that if God was big and good, why wouldn't he protect my cousin who was so tiny and so awesome, such a funny, brilliant little guy? Why wouldn't God protect him from a huge muscle guy like his stepdad who beat him to death?
I look out across the audience when I stand up to preach, and I think of all the people with their different backgrounds and their various needs. And I know that they are objects of God's mighty love. To the point that he gave his son, his only son, to die upon a cross. And the cross was the most terrible form of execution by the Romans for criminals. And Jesus endured all of that in our place because of our sins. We deserve the cross. We deserve hell. We deserve judgment and all that that means. I know that many people dispute that. People don't want to hear that they're sinners. To many people, it's an offense. The cross is offensive because it directly confronts the evils which dominate so much of this world.
You see, the Bible teaches that all of us are wrong. We've all gone astray. We've everyone turned to his own way. And when we turn to our own way, we go astray from God's way. And that includes the whole human race. And that's why the world is in such terrible danger right now. It's not dangerous so much because we have atomic bombs. It's dangerous because of the human hearts back of the bombs, filled with envy and hate and strife and greed and lust and all the other things that can pull the trigger.
I remember thinking that same year that my cousin died about the depth of the evil in the world. I never wanted to have kids. It was just a new person to suffer. That was the year I started to cry myself to sleep every night and stopped believing in God. I couldn't get away from my own depression. So I started studying other religions. There was a lot of nice ideas, but there wasn't any tangible healing. And I remember thinking, I'm tired of the pain in my heart. I'm tired of going to bed that way. I'm tired of feeling like a burden. I'm just tired of not knowing why I'm alive. And so I remember the night I laid in bed and I knew I was going to commit suicide the next day. I knew that I was not going to live past tomorrow.
By 16, I was getting high on a daily basis and got involved with a woman after woman after woman. And you know, when you mix drugs, you mix alcohol, you mix youth, it's cause for an explosion. My mother was really concerned about me. I remember she just grabbed the Bible, said, I don't know what to do, but you just need to read this Bible. You know, I remember taking the pages of the Bible and just ripping them out and throwing them on the ground and saying, I don't care about your God, I don't care about this. This doesn't mean anything to me.
One reason that the cross is of offense to people is because it demands, doesn't suggest, it demands a new lifestyle in all of us.
Sin is a disease in the human heart. It affects the mind and the will and the emotions. Every part of our being is affected by this disease. How can we break this bondage? How can we be set free? God helps us break those chains. The Bible says, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things pass away. Everything becomes new. He can make you a totally new person.
On the day that I planned to commit suicide, I came home from school and my grandma was there and she wasn't supposed to be there. And she looked at me and said, there's something wrong with you. You're gonna go to church. I was like, no way I'm going to church. And she screamed at the top of her lungs like we were fighting back and forth, and I just didn't want to listen to her yell anymore. And so I decided, fine, I'll go. And then afterwards, I'll go ahead and follow through with my plan. So I went to the back of the church and slumped down in my chair and hated everybody in the room. And the pastor started speaking, and I hated him more than anyone. And he says, there's a suicidal spirit in the room. And of course, all the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I was, well, this is really weird. And I got up and went to the door. A white-headed man is standing there, and he stopped me. And it was like, the Lord wants me to speak to you. He wants you to know that even though you've never known an earthly father, that God will be a better father to you than any earthly father could ever be. God knows the pain in your heart. He has seen you cry yourself to sleep at night. The idea was so overwhelming to me. He's like, do you want me to pray for you so that Jesus can take the pain out of your heart? He put his hand on my shoulder and started to pray. It was as if the God of the universe showed up right in front of me. And the first thing I noticed was that God was holy and good. And the second thing I noticed was that I was so not holy and not good.
I was in a really dark place. I was really lonely, really depressed. And a friend of mine reached out and invited me to a conference. And I'm thinking, why not? My mind was blown when I got there. I had never seen anything like it. I saw guys with bullet wounds and ex-gang members who loved Jesus. And I had never seen anything like that before. And so I was intrigued. I'll never forget the pastor. You know, he started talking about Jesus and talking about him in an intense way that I had never thought about before. I had never just imagined Jesus as a real person going through real things. I just kind of thought of him as this very off, distant person. But he brought it home to me, and he started talking about Jesus being beaten and being whipped for a crime he didn't commit, and the skin being ripped off his back, and him having to, in the midst of this pain, carry this cross up this mountain of a skull and being pinned to this cross. It was so vivid and visual to me. It was like I could see this happening to Jesus.